Hello, glad to see you on my channel. I really value it. And today I want to share with you a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story that will come as a total shock to everybody. It is a really amazing story. So enjoy watching it.
Are you sure you can do it? His wife was worried about him. Absolutely. Anthony was not afraid of any difficulties. As of late, he had decided to take a part-time job. That's what they talked about. Cindy was in her early 20s, still single. Not compared to her friends, of which there were two. They didn't have a lot of time to get married and have kids. Catherine, have you two decided to get married? Cindy had been surprised when they were freshmen in high school. And what to delay, John proposed. I had no doubt. The girl laughed in response. You're brave to get married at 18. It takes courage, Cindy said, thinking that she didn't even have anyone to go to the wedding with. Why are you so sad? Asked Emma, who was present during the conversation. No, it's just that some people get married and some don't even have relationships, Cindy sighed. Don't feel bad. There will be a party on your street, her friends encouraged her. Now the friends were getting ready for the party. Emma was to be a witness, so she still had to dye her hair and buy a beautiful dress. Her friend's wedding went well, and after that, not even 3 months passed when she was already in a position. You in general, amazed by Catherine's speed girlfriends. And I'll probably catch up soon, showed the ring Emma. No way. Who when? Surrounded her friends. 2 weeks ago I met a young man, and he did not wait for anything, said Emma, and she was ashamed of it. I thought Catherine was fast, and you, Cindy shook her head. No, girls, I told him to wait at least 6 months to get to know each other, the girl admitted. That time flew by very quickly. Nanny turned out to be a very nice guy, and now they were getting their second friend married, and Cindy was still single. Congratulate me, Emma patted her stomach. Congratulations to you, hugged Catherine, who had recently given birth. Thank you. Emma was of course happy, but she saw how her friend and young mother looked now, and she didn't want that. While Emma was pregnant, the friends socialized. Cindy came to visit. Catherine was with them less often, but she came over sometimes too. They chatted about all sorts of things, mostly babies, how to raise them, and what to do. And then, when the other friend gave birth, she and Catherine started going always and everywhere together. Cindy tried to join them a couple of times, but she wasn't interested in hearing about diapers and formula. Why have you been away so long? Emma asked her one day. I don't know. You've got your own family things going on, she answered. You're not offended? Asked her friend. What? She didn't understand. Well, soon the kids will grow up. We'll rock together again. At that moment, Cindy heard a baby crying from the stroller. You should probably go. The girl didn't mind. She returned home. Her studies were coming to an end. She had to get a job. That was all she could think about. But a series of refusals began. Wherever Cindy came, everywhere needed experience and experience. It was annoying. The girl did not want to enter the institute to get a higher education. But all these employers so bored her that she decided to. You didn't want to, did you? Wondered her friend. While I'm studying, maybe I can get a job somewhere and gain experience, answered Cindy. Well, as you know, Emma was happy for her. So the girl became a third-year student, since she had already completed her secondary education. And, strangely enough, she found a job, at first not by profession, but Cindy did not miss the opportunity. And within a year, she was where she wanted to be. Guys, why don't we go to the concert? She called her co-workers, who had become close to her over the year. Oh, come on, Wen. They all had families and kids. So Cindy called her girlfriends, hoping they would support her. Catherine, please, this is the first and maybe the last time this group is coming, she urged her friend. But understand, it is necessary to go to another city. The concert in the evening, we will have to stay there. And what about the child? She did not agree. When the girl called Emma, the result was the same. Fine, Cindy stomped her foot and looked at herself in the mirror. I'll go alone. She spent a long time getting ready, thinking about what to wear, how to go. When next day came, she took the bus, and in 3 hours she was there. She had to rent a place to stay, because she had to spend the night somewhere. The first thing the girl did was to go to the hotel, to find out how much a room costs for the night. It turned out that it wasn't that expensive. She decided she would stay here. That's it, she tuned herself. She had never gone to such events alone before. The girl went to the address she found on the internet. It was some strange red brick building. Cindy wondered, a normal performer, why he chose this place. It looked like an abandoned factory. Walked in, there was security at the entrance. "Open your purse," the men asked. Okay, the girl was surprised it was so serious.
Cindy went inside, a bar, a large dance floor, and a few tables against the wall. It was kind of uncomfortable. She had attended concerts before. They were held in some houses of culture, halls, clubs, but she had never seen anything like this. Some strange guy appeared on stage, stood behind the console. Cindy realized it was some kind of warm-up act. Heavy music filled the room. DJ was saying something into the microphone. The girl went out to the bar, stood at the counter, ordered a light cocktail. Hello, she heard the crowd scream, and all the people started to gather in the hall. It was clear that the main performer had come out. Cindy picked up her glass and followed everyone. She saw some strange young people, many with long hair, wearing strange clothes, some with makeup on their faces, both girls and guys. What's going on? She asked herself. If she was still with her friend, she could talk, even hang out here with her. But she was alone. When the man on stage started singing, it was scary. It wasn't at all what Cindy expected. She realized she was at the wrong concert. She went back to the bar. She didn't know what to do. "Can I have a beer?" She heard a young man next to her, who looked the same as the others. "Yeah, sure," replied the bartender. He filled a glass. The guy took a sip and turned back to the bar. "Hi," he turned to Cindy, who really stood out from everyone else. "Hello," she nodded slightly. "Why are you here?" He meant not in the lounge. Just, she thought he was asking why she came. "Shall we go and dance?" the young man offered her. "No thanks," she even put her hand forward. "Why would you come to a concert like this just to stand there?" He didn't understand. And Cindy saw the young people inside, huddled together, bouncing around, shaking their heads, something going on. "You know, I didn't go to this concert at all," the girl admitted. "Oh, I see. You're not from around here." He was smiling. No, she didn't understand what that had to do with it. "You come to the box office. You say that on such and such date to the concert. You are asked what kind of concert, you answer. Then they give you a ticket and the address," he explained, and Cindy still didn't understand. "So what?" She waved her hands. "Show me the ticket," the guy asked. The girl took it out of her purse, handed it to him. "Here, look," he showed her. The addresses were written in small print at the bottom. "The price for the concerts is the same. You choose which one and go there. You came to the first one." That's right. She couldn't believe she'd gotten so screwed up. "Anthony," he held out his hand to her. "Cindy," she shook it. "You want to get out of here?" the guy asked. Probably didn't know what she should do. "Come on then, I'll show you the evening city." He walked forward, Cindy following him. She was walking, looking at Anthony's back, and thinking that you can't go like this, walking in a strange city with some stranger. But she didn't do anything, just followed her new acquaintance. "Can I go home?" Cindy asked timidly. "When are you ever going to walk around here like this again?" "I'm kind of uncomfortable," she mused. "Or scared?" The boy stopped, smiled, and looked at her. No, she decided. She had nothing to be afraid of around him. So, he gave her an elbow and they walked on. Anthony told a lot of interesting things, about monuments, about houses and buildings. Cindy marveled that a guy who was into such music, had unusual looks, knew so much. When it was very late, he walked her home after all. "Is there any chance that we will meet again?" he asked the girl when they were outside the hotel. "I don't even know," she shrugged. To be honest, she liked him too. His inner world was so rich. Cindy left Anthony her work phone number, and he dictated her home phone number. "Bye," he simply told her, and off he went. Goodbye. The girl was sorry to part too. She had been up practically all night, thinking what a fool she was for coming here alone. But on the other hand, then she wouldn't have met Anthony. In the morning, Cindy took the same bus back home. She didn't go out again that day. In the morning, no sooner had she gotten to work than the phone rang. As she waited to make the call, Emma started gibbering without a greeting. Cindy said calmly. "So tell me, how was your trip? Did you like it?" She had a lot of questions. It was okay. She didn't want to tell Cindy what really happened. "Oh, you're always so secretive." Her friend's voice changed immediately. "Okay, bye." Got to work. The girl hung up the phone. She sat and looked at the phone, and what if Anthony called now? But the machine was silent. Then Cindy decided to distract herself and not think about that strange acquaintance. She spent the whole day working on her paperwork, didn't even go to lunch, and stayed in the evening to finish some things. As she turned off the lights in the office and inserted the key into the keyhole to close the office, the phone rang. "Hello," she approached. "Cindy?" A male voice asked. Yes, she recognized him. "This is Anthony." He introduced himself just in case. "Hi," she smiled. "Today I went to work in the morning, and I thought, how can I call you if I'm at work all day, and the phone is only at home? So I decided to try my luck." The girl sat down on a chair. She was pleased to listen to him, and it did not matter what he said. "Why are you working so late?" He was curious. "He especially sat and waited for your call," she joked. "And if I hadn't called?" He didn't get the joke. "Well, you did," she laughed. "Let's get together this weekend," Anthony suggested. "How?" She wasn't going anywhere. "I can come over," the guy suggested. "I don't even know where you're staying." She kind of panicked. "What? No hotels?" The young man was surprised. "Oh, there are." She didn't even think about it. "Then it's agreed. And do not sit so late. On Saturday morning I will be. Tell me the address." She dictated where she lives and hung up. That evening, Cindy went home happy that she had someone. That was it. You never know where fate awaits you. At home she went to her room, locked herself in there, and began to think about what they would do with Anthony when he arrived. All week the girl flew to work as if on wings. It even seemed to her that she lost a little weight. Cindy must be in love, her co-workers told her. "Anything's possible," she replied cryptically. Saturday morning, she got up very early, took a shower, sat in front of the mirror. Today, the girl wanted to look very good. She styled her hair both this way and that way, but then decided to go with loose. The girl was ready, but Anthony was still gone. She didn't know what to think, so she decided to go outside and wait for him near the entrance. It was only 10 in the morning, so she sat down on a bench and just waited. "Cindy, what are you doing here so early?" A neighbor passed by. "I don't know." She lied because she didn't want anyone to know about anything. An hour passed, but Anthony was still gone, and then suddenly she thought that he wouldn't get up at 6 in the morning to take the bus for her and be at her place at 9. Cindy laughed, which caught the janitor's attention. She got up and walked back into the entryway. "Why you keep coming and going?" her mother asked her. "Nothing to do," she told her and went to her room. There she did not know what to do. Then the girl sat down near the window and began to look out so as not to miss the young man, but he was not there. At some point, Cindy thought that he would not come, but still continued to hope, sat on the windowsill and looked into the distance. And not in vain, at some point he appeared from around the corner. Then the girl quickly put on her shoes and ran out again to the entrance. They collided in the doorway. "Hi," she said to him, but inside she was either excited or she was running down the stairs, her voice shaking. "Sorry I'm late," he told her. "No, you didn't have to get up early in the morning to come to me," she began to reassure him. "Well, it's still good that I came." Anthony didn't bother to tell her why he was late. The first thing they did was walk to the local hotel for the guy to get settled there. The girls still didn't know where they would go or what they would do today. There weren't any sights in town that they could talk about all day. "So, where shall we go?" he asked her when the lodging was settled. "You know, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I don't know," she replied. "We could just walk around the city." "Okay, let's walk around the city," he didn't mind. And just like the last time they met, they walked and Anthony told various stories. Cindy was more silent. When they were in the park, the girls saw two familiar figures. It was Emma and Catherine and their children walking. "Let's go say hello to my friends," she said to Anthony. "Sure, let's go." He was happy that today was the first date he was visiting her, and he would already know who the girl was talking to. They approached the girls. They looked at their girlfriend in surprise. "Girls, meet Anthony, and this is Emma and Catherine." She pointed at her acquaintances. "Nice to meet you," they chirped. Of course, now they didn't feel comfortable asking Cindy who it was and why they were walking together today. But afterward, they were sure to do so. "Let's sit here," Anthony suggested when they parted from the girls. "Okay," Cindy agreed, because there were no other benches in town except in the park. "Isn't there a store or a stall around here where you can buy something?" he asked her. "There, across the street," she showed him the direction. "Stay here, I'll be right there." He went that way. Cindy was pleased. First, that a young man had come to visit her, and second, that he was now courting her. No one knew what was going on inside her. Anthony came back with ice cream and a soda. "It's like this," he told her, and laughed. "It's okay," she answered him. They sat and talked. The guy asked about Cindy's family, about her, where she worked, where she went to school. It turned out that she studied in the same city where he lived, and that's where she found out about the concert. "So we're going to live there?" He got excited. She was surprised that he was offering her such a thing. "So what? You'll get settled there. Maybe we'll arrange a transfer." Anthony seemed to shake at the thought. "Well, where will I live? It costs a lot to rent an apartment," she began to reason. "What apartment? You will live with me. I live alone." Anthony found a quick way out of this situation. "Like you. We've only known each other for 2 days. I can't do that," said Cindy. "Okay, when is your next session?" he asked her. "In a couple months." She counted the time frame in her head. "That's good. Think it over by then. We'll meet again. We'll call each other. You'll talk to your boss. He'll give you 2 weeks off. You'll work it off. And then you'll come to me," he suggested. "I don't know." She couldn't agree to that anyway. "Okay, here's another version. You work until the session, and then you come and live with me. If all is well and you like it, you drive back, quit, and move in with me." He looked at her and waited for the verdict. "Okay, I'll agree to that, but I have to prepare my parents as well." She thought ahead of everything. "Let's go out tonight and get acquainted." He didn't want to stall. Everything is so fast. She remembered how she told her girlfriends that they get married and have children in a short time. "Come on, I'm kidding," he laughed again. "I see." She nodded her head. "Next time you come to me or I come to you?" he asked her. "Let's go back to my place." She was uncomfortable, but she couldn't say otherwise, because here she slept at home and there was no embarrassment, and there she would have to spend the night at his place. "Well, agreed." They walked a little more. After that, the young man suggested her to go to some cafe. "You know, I've only been to cafes in our town with my parents before. I haven't been to any other cafes, but we could walk and go to some." Cindy was telling the truth. "Okay, while we were walking here, I saw one on the way. It looked decent, They came in the same direction they came from this afternoon. The cafe was really nice. They went in, had some tea, ate some ice cream, and Anthony went to walk Cindy home. "See you tomorrow," he whispered to her. "Bye." She walked into the entryway, the feelings overwhelmed, but the girl held back her emotions. The next day, she had him at her place very early. Today, she didn't expect it because she thought it would be like yesterday. "Anthony, I'm sorry I'm not ready yet." She looked out the door. "That's okay, I'll wait." It was his turn to sit on the bench and wait for her. He had a bus at lunchtime, so they walked around a bit and Cindy went to see him off. From then on, the young man and the girl started dating. Every weekend he would call her, telling her when he was coming over. It was usually Friday evening or Saturday morning. She was waiting for him, and so the time passed. And then, the time came when she had to go to the session. At work, she had written a statement that she was going, and as they had agreed, she was going to stay with Anthony. There was already a very trusting relationship between them, so Cindy was no longer afraid of anything. She came to live with him, they settled in well. And when the session was over, the girl was ready to move in with her boyfriend. So I quit, and she came to him with a suitcase. "What about your parents?" He squinted his eyes. While I told them that it is more convenient for me to live in this city, and a classmate offered to rent an apartment together, she told him that she had lied to her parents. "All right, let them think that for now," he agreed with her. No matter how much Cindy looked for a job in this town, she couldn't find the one she wanted, so she got a job as a clerk in an ordinary store. So far, she was happy with that. Close to New Year's Eve, the young people went to Cindy's parents to finally get acquainted. They liked the guy. Nobody said anything bad about him. And as the chimes struck, he got down on one knee. "Cindy, will you marry me?" He handed her the ring. "Jesus, Anthony," she hugged him. It was clear to everyone that these young people had been serious for a long time. Catherine and Emma were welcome guests at the wedding. Of course they came. Everything went very cheerfully. Everyone liked everything. From that point on, pretty much nothing changed. Cindy continued to study and work at the store. Anthony also labored in the factory as he had before. "Darling, I think you're going to be a daddy soon. It's only been a month since the wedding." "That's good, that's happiness." He hugged her. "Yeah, I used to think about it." She wanted to tell him. "I don't care what you used to think. I want you to quit the store." He told her, "I don't want you overstretching yourself." Good. She looked at him and thought the birth would just be at the end of winter, and there she would have to defend her diploma. "What are you thinking about?" My husband was wondering. "Yes, I think how I will defend myself, if not allowed or something else." She was worried. "Why do you think about it now? When the time comes, then we will think together." He hugged her. Everything was going very well. There was no nausea, no dizziness, swelling, or anything else. The girl felt great. She attended appointments when she was scheduled and was preparing not only for the birth, but also writing her diploma. "You're such a smart girl," Anthony praised her constantly. "I love you. You're the one who's so good," she always said back to Cindy. It was true. Their family worked out very well. Both people loved each other, and soon they were going to have another little man. The birth had gone very well, and now the family was raising a little girl, whom the father and mother had named Aubry. There was no limit to the happiness. "Wake up, everybody," Cindy would say in the morning. She'd make breakfast. Then she'd send her husband to work and do the chores. Her daughter was very calm. She hardly cried at all, which made her mom very happy. Since Cindy did not have time to defend her diploma because she was in labor, and now, when Aubry was 3 months old, she received a call that she could come for a retake. Things worked out well here too. Diploma in hand, Cindy didn't even know what else to dream about. "I want more children," she told her husband at night when they went to bed. "Leslie, wait till Aubry's a little older," he looked at her. But a year went by, 2, 3, and the pregnancy never came. I don't know what's wrong with me, Cindy sometimes cried. Aubry was already in kindergarten. They could have another baby, but it wasn't working out. Don't get so upset if something was wrong. We wouldn't have had our first child, but everything will be normal, Anthony reassured her. Maybe we should go to the hospital. His wife told him. Look, let's wait a little longer. You'll see, everything will be fine. He didn't want to do that. But when Aubry was already 9 years old and there was still no pregnancy, Anthony decided to go to the clinic. When they took all the tests and the results were ready, the doctor called them to his office. I don't see any problems, he told them. Well, then why isn't it working? Cindy didn't understand. I can't tell you that. Maybe you're not trying hard enough, joked the doctor. Thank you, Anthony told him, took his wife's hand, and they left the office. Another year passed. Nothing happened. One day, Cindy was visiting Emma, and Catherine was there too. They, as before in childhood, sat talking about everything, and the girl decided to share her problems with him. What's wrong? Said her friends, who, one had already had 2 children, and the other 3. Everything will still be. Oh, you sound just like my husband. Cindy didn't want to listen to them, because she was tired of the words that everyone was saying to her. And right, he tells you, everything is fine. We are still young. There is no hurry, they supported her. It will be. When it comes, I'll be retired. Cindy thought that she had told them that for nothing. If you want, let's go to a grandmother in the village. I heard that she helped women who couldn't get pregnant for a long time, Emma suggested. What are you talking about? Cindy was scared. She didn't believe in it at all. Come on, let's just go and let her take a look at you, her friend conceded. Okay, fine, Cindy agreed. But after she went home, she couldn't get out for a long time because she had a lot on her mind. So 2 months after that conversation, she and her friends actually went to the village to talk to the woman. When Cindy saw the so-called grandmother, she was amused because she didn't look like an old woman at all. What about the kids? She looked at her. How did you know? Cindy looked back at Emma, thinking she'd told her. How could I not know if that's all you think about? She put her hand to her stomach. And what's in there? The girl stood there looking at her. Everything is fine. You will have more than one, the lady of the house told her. Cindy wanted to ask something. No more questions. Goodbye. The grandmother turned away from them. Emma pulled Cindy toward the exit, and that we drove all this way just to hear that I'll have everything. That's what I heard from you two. The girl was disappointed in that too. Well, let's see. Emma was sitting there thinking they'd had a wasted trip too. Where have you been? Anthony asked her that evening when his wife came home. You won't believe it. She smiled back at him, went into the kitchen and began to prepare dinner. Well, tell me what I should not believe. He couldn't wait to find out. Inca took me to my grandmother in the village today, said Cindy irritably. And what did the grandmother tell you? Anthony didn't believe in all this wisdom either. Nothing. She put her hand on my stomach and said everything will be just like you, just like everyone else. It was obvious that Cindy was angry. See, everyone tells you it will be, so it will be, he told her. A year passed after this incident. Things were going well in the family as usual. Her husband worked. Cindy went to work. One evening she came home, looked at her husband and froze. What are you doing? He asked her. Anthony, I think I'm pregnant, she said. How did you know that? He couldn't understand. I don't know, I just think so. She looked at herself in the mirror. Listen, it's an obsession. It's been haunting you for so many years that it seems to me that you've just indoctrinated yourself with the idea. You know, there are imaginary pregnancies. So you have it. He smiled, took her hand and led her to the kitchen. No, you know, I have this feeling. I can't explain it. She gestured more than she spoke. Okay. He went to the hallway, put on his shoes, and left the apartment. Where are you going? She opened the door. I'll be right back. The man ran to the drugstore, bought a test, and brought it home. "Here, go check it out," he told her. "But you have to do them in the morning to get a more accurate result." She took the package in her hands. "I bought more than one. Go test now and test in the morning." He couldn't believe that here was a woman who could so easily feel that she was pregnant. Cindy went to the bathroom. When she came out of there, her eyes were bigger than usual. So, he was waiting for her. Yes, she handed him a strip with 2 scarlet dots on it. "How can this be? I don't understand." He put his arms around her and spun her around. "What's going on?" Aubry came into the room where they were sitting. "You're going to be a big sister soon," her mom told her. "You'd think I should be happy about that." Aubry had always been unhappy about everything lately. From that moment on, just like the first time, her husband started treating his wife like a crystal vase. If she lost a child or something else happened, he thought she wouldn't survive it. But everything went very well. Even the birth, which Cindy had dreaded so much because it had been so many years since the first one, had gone so well. You see, her friends told her, we promised her everything would be fine. They were congratulating her on the new baby. "Yeah, I didn't believe anybody," Cindy said. When Stan was 6 months old, Cindy sensed something was wrong. "Anthony, go to the drugstore and get another test," she said. "What do you mean?" He looked at her. "Literally, I feel like I'm pregnant again." She stood in front of him and stared. "Leslie, are you laughing at me now?" He was confused. "Yes, I was laughing then and I'm laughing now. Are you coming or not?" She couldn't wait. "I've got some left over from last time." Cindy went to the bathroom with him. There, again he saw the same white stripe with 2 red dashes. "It just can't be. Then we couldn't get nothing for so many years. Now it's one after another." Cindy took a test both morning and evening. They all said the same thing. She was indeed pregnant. Abortion was out of the question, so the family waited again for the baby. "Don't you have a baby every year?" Aubry said to her mother. The girl was already in 9th grade, and now she began to disappear on the streets. She'd come home late, couldn't tell where she was. When Cindy had her 3rd child, she was happy again, just like the first 2 times. Now there was no time at all for her oldest daughter. She only cared for her younger sons. Stan and Richard were practically the same age, so there was plenty to do with them. Anthony continued to work at the factory, but his salary was not enough to pay for all the family's whims. "Should I get another job?" he asked his wife. "Look, I don't know," she told him. "If you can do it, go for it," his wife said. When Stan was given a place in kindergarten, his mother was very happy. All that was left was to raise little Richard. The youngest was a little over a year old when Cindy came to see Anthony again. He already knew that look, so he was even scared. "Please don't tell me you're pregnant again." Her husband looked at her. "Look, I don't know how it works, but I really am pregnant, and now I didn't just feel it anymore." She put some test strips on the table. "So we're gonna have another baby." He wasn't happy about the whole pregnancy thing. "I'm not killing my babies," she said then. "Good," sighed the man heavily. He did start looking for part-time work, any kind of part-time work, somewhere to sit in security, somewhere to be a watchman, but every night Cindy would call, summoning him home, because there were a lot of problems. She couldn't raise the kid. "Look how beautiful it is, and I didn't believe you." Cindy stood in the doorway and couldn't believe it could be made out of scrap materials. "It's the slop again." Aubry came home. "What are you talking about? Go look. There's a bed for you too." Her mother wanted to talk to her coldly. "I don't want to see anything, and I'm leaving you," she told her parents. "How are you leaving?" The mother felt bad. "I met a wonderful man, and in order not to disturb you, I'm moving in with him." She threw her things into a bag. "Anthony!" shouted to the husband-wife. She had already settled on the floor as it was bad. "What are you doing?" The man grabbed his daughter's arm. "Let go." He wrenched it away. "Look what the mother brought to what?" At this point, cried little children. Leave me alone. You all bore me. I'm disgusted to live in a garbage dump. She grabbed what she managed to fold and went to the door. Oh, I can't call an ambulance. Cindy was already lying on the floor. At this point, Anthony didn't care about his eldest daughter. He pulled out his cell phone and called an ambulance. After that, he dropped to his knees and cradled his wife. Honey, breathe. The paramedics are coming. Everything will be okay. He kissed her face. Cindy was breathing. It wasn't her first pregnancy, but if she had delivered all her children on time and without problems, this day was still about 2 months away. Who's sick? Anthony opened the door and 2 men came in. The wife, he pointed to the floor. Cindy was put on a stretcher and taken downstairs to the car. Now everything was not going according to plan. The woman was fainting and coming to, and this only hindered the doctors. The girl was born with a very small weight, weak. The mother was put in one room because she was still bad, the girl in another. Tell me, how does my wife feel? Anthony rushed to the maternity hospital in the morning. She is not well yet. The baby's condition is steadily grave, they announced to him. What is it? He fell to his knees and cried. Everything will be fine. Calm down. Go home. We are expecting you in a couple of days. The woman in the white coat reassured him. Anthony returned home. He wanted to do everything he wanted by the arrival of his wife. Well, and of course for his daughter. The man brought home a couch that someone had thrown away. The furniture was good. It just needed a new upholstery. Anthony's hands were in the right place, and his mother-in-law, who never said no, was called in to babysit. What are you doing? The woman asked as she entered the large room. Here, the sofa has aged, I tightened. He did not admit to her where he actually took it. What a golden son-in-law I have. She always admired him. The most important thing now was for Cindy and her daughter to come home alive and well. Every day, in shifts, Cindy's mother and her husband went to the hospital. Things were getting better, and both woman and child were getting better, which couldn't have been more gratifying. Finally, after a month and a half, Anthony arrived to meet his beloved from the hospital. When his daughter was presented in his arms, he cried. It just so happened that one caused pain and the other joy. Where's Aubry? Cindy asked him as they drove home. I don't know, she never came home, Anthony said. God, where can I find her? What's wrong with my baby now? Cindy started crying every time they thought about it. The doctors at first advised Anthony not to let his wife worry because the milk could be lost and their baby girl needed it. My darling, don't worry. She'll walk, she'll come, as her husband used to kiss her. How can you say that? Because she is our daughter. The wife did not stop shedding tears. Selena grew up very sickly. Even her brothers, though they were small, understood it, and in everything they could help. At first, when Cindy came home from the hospital, she didn't notice what her husband had done at home. But when a little time passed, she saw the couch. What is this? She realized that her husband wouldn't buy such an expensive item. All from the same place, he continued to work at the factory, but he didn't stop working as a janitor either. It was convenient and a good help. Wow, she sank down on the soft surface. What did I tell you? Imagine the savings. He sat down next to her. Anthony, why don't you go to the police? She started talking about her older daughter again. What are you gonna do? Get nervous and have a breakdown? He knew it would happen. One day, Aubry called home and her mother went crazy. Where are you, my girl? She was yelling into the phone. Mom, I'm fine. Apparently the girl also understood that her mother was getting upset. After that, Cindy calmed down a bit, besides that she had a lot of other problems. Well, how are you? The man looked into the children's room after he had done his yard work. Good, the boys were happy to see him because they didn't see him that often. Stain and Richard went to daycare. It made Cindy's life very easy. She was home with Sveta. After that they would have breakfast and then all the men would leave the father would take his sons to the educational facility and go to work himself. "Selena, let's go to eat." We didn't have milk of our own, so we sat on formula, which also took a lot of money. In the evening, Anthony came, along with him Stan and Richard. The boys understood everything, so they tried not to do too much, so that Mom and Dad could rest. The man rested for a couple hours, had dinner, and went to his second job. This evening, he went out to the yard. By and large, there wasn't much work to do, unless you count the cold season when it was snowing outside. He took a broom, swept here and there, picked up trash. Again, someone couldn't get it. He picked up whatever fell out of the bag by the trash cans. "Anthony, hey, the garbage truck's here." The driver, John, whom Anthony had befriended long ago, greeted him. "You're early today. I haven't had time to collect anything yet," the man told him. "And you do not hurry. I'll sit while you work, talk to you," reasoned the comrade. "Oh, what's left here?" Anthony looked around his yard. "You don't want to work here. There are other jobs," John told him. "You know, at first I thought I'd get a job for a couple of months, but then I got sucked in." Anthony waved his broom. "So did I, once, when I found gold earrings. So my wife said that this job brings only income," laughed the garbage truck driver. "You should know what I've done at home. Renovated everything," the janitor bragged to him. "That's what I'm saying," Jonah kept laughing. "Okay, talk is talk, but you've got work to do. Get the job done," Anthony told him, because all the trash had already been picked up. John reluctantly got up, walked to his car. Even though he loved his job, it didn't really show. He climbed up onto the running board, pulled up, and took a seat behind the wheel. At that moment, Anthony saw a woman from the next doorway come out into the street with a garbage bag. He hurried over to her. "Hello, Julia," the man approached. "Oh, Anthony, hello. And you have already cleaned up." "I didn't have time," she said regretfully. No. Come on, I'll take it away myself." He didn't want to pick something up again if the old lady couldn't reach the bins. "Oh, thank you. That's what they say about you. You're a gold, not a man." "Cindy's lucky to have you." She patted him on the arm. "That's it. Go home." He smiled back at the woman so she wouldn't think anything of him. He walked from her back to the garbage truck. "Wait," he shouted to John and waved his hand when he had already snagged the tank and wanted to flip it over. "What else?" He didn't like being distracted. The tank was put in place. Anthony walked over, tossed the bag in there. "May I?" He nodded, looking at John, himself standing next to it. The driver hooked the tank again. The janitor was watching. Everything was moving very slowly. Suddenly, Anthony saw that inside the garbage truck there was some kind of roll, not like the others. "Stop." Again he waved his hand to his comrade. "You're going to stop me for every bag now." "John, there is something there." He pointed inside the car, where there was only garbage. "And what, should I dive in there now?" The man was ready for anything, but not for that. "I'm going in," Anthony said confidently. "What? You do not have all the houses?" "Yes, there is so much trash twisted at the Temple of John." "Don't you realize it could be anything?" said the janitor. He couldn't believe what was coming into his head. Arth spit on the ground the driver and climbed into his cab. What to do? Looked around Anthony. He looked around for something to put on his feet. Then an idea popped into his head. He walked over to the tank, which was so hitched up by the car. Took a bag of garbage there, carefully untied it, dumped out the garbage, and pulled it over his boot. Did the same with the other foot. Now at least they were protected. All that was left was to figure out how to get in there on my own. The same garbage can help, only different. The man wanted to turn it over, stand up, and climb in. But he didn't need to. Anthony saw some kind of box. That was enough for him. As he climbed, a thought flashed through his mind as to why he needed all this. Boops! He jumped into the garbage truck and immediately started drowning in the garbage that was there. Quickly, he grabbed the package he saw. It was some rags. It was under a lot of papers and cleanup. There was no time to look. He had to crawl out. The bags that were on his legs were just getting in the way. Anthony shoved the bundle under his arm, pulled himself up, and jumped out. Jesus, they won't let you home with that stink. John plugged his nose. He wanted to clap his friend on the shoulder, but then he remembered where he'd just been, so he turned away and walked toward the entrance. At least take the bags off your feet, the driver of the garbage truck shouted after him. Thank you. Anthony started hopping up and down on one foot and down on the other. He walked quickly into the entryway, not knowing what surprise awaited him at home. As the man walked down the entryway, he realized for himself how he smelled. He realized that Cindy was going to start cursing and the boys were going to turn their noses up at him as usual. He opened the door to the apartment, went inside, and his wife came right out. Anthony again. She stood in front of him in the hallway. Wait, I have a case here. He showed her the package. First wash up, and then you're done. She couldn't stand the smell. Okay. Anthony put the package neatly on the nightstand and went to take a shower. After that, all of his stuff was thrown into a trash bag and he wrapped it in another one. After that, Cindy went out into the hallway while she was putting her shoes away. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw that the package her husband had brought moved. What is it? She straightened up, shaking her head. Then carefully, with her finger, she turned away one of the cloths, and again there was movement. Anthony, Cindy shouted. She was scared out of her wits. What are you yelling for? He ran out in a towel. He's moving, she pointed at the bundle. If it's what I think it is, it's going to be a thrash. He walked over and started unwrapping the rest of the rags. Jesus, he crouched down on the same nightstand where what he'd just found recently lay. The man clamped his hand over his mouth. Cindy fainted at that moment. Mom, he heard a rumble, and Stan came running out of the room. Son, come into the room, cried Anthony. He went to the phone, dialed 03, and walked over to his wife. Honey, was it all real? The woman came to her senses. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. It was the medics. They entered the apartment. Who's sick? That was the first question. Here, handed Anthony a package. You, what's this? The first to turn their backs was the first responders. Look, still holding Anthony's outstretched arms to someone who needed help. Hurry, get in the car, the doctors scrambled. I'm coming with you, said Cindy. You what, I'll go, said the man. He quickly got dressed and went out to get the crew. They quickly reached the hospital. Emergency, IQ, newborn baby in unknown condition. Shouted the doctors, gurneys, noise, noise. Anthony sat in the hallway. For a very long time there was no one. The man was tired. He lay down right there on the couch. He couldn't think of anything else. But he didn't have to sleep long. The police came. They roused him. What who? He opened his eyes. Come on, they took him into the office. He told them where and how he found the child. It was decided that if he survived, he'd be put in a home. I don't think that's going to happen. Anthony looked at them. Why do you think that? The policeman didn't understand. I think neither I nor my wife will let it happen. At this point, Anthony was crying. Cindy arrived at the hospital in the morning. She left the boys at home today. They were supposed to follow Selena. So, what's up? How's it going? She sounded excited. I skipped work. The first thing my husband said, that's okay. You can call. They'll understand. She stroked his arm. I'm completely exhausted. He couldn't even sit up properly anymore. Go home, I'll sit. She took his hand. He stood up, walked out of the hallway with a wobbly gait, and headed in the direction of the house. Cindy sat there. She didn't understand where this child could have come from, what had happened to him, and what was happening to him now. Who are you? The doctor came out. I'm the wife of the man who found this baby, she said, confused. I see, and he went further down the corridor. What do you understand? Tell me what's wrong with him." The woman ran after him. "What's it to you?" The man didn't understand. "What do you mean? There are no other people's children. I need to know," she cried. "God, woman, why do you need it? The guy survived. Now he is in intensive care, but there is such a bouquet of diseases that you could not even dream of," he went on again. "No, I still need to know that." She couldn't just let it go. So Cindy was taken into the office. The doctor took the boy's medical history. "Okay, newborn. He's about 2 or 3 weeks old. Born right away with abnormalities," the doctor read. "So is he gonna live?" Cindy asked. "If nothing has happened already, that means nothing will, at least not now." The medic looked at her. Cindy was silent. She turned to the window and thought, "No need to think. Pack up and go home. As soon as the child is better, we'll get him to the right place." The man took her by the hand and led her out of the office. "Yes, my love, go wake up your brother," and she went to get Sveta. When Anthony woke up, Cindy just stared at him. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. "I take it you said the same thing as me at the hospital." She answered with a question to a question. "About us taking him for ourselves." Seemed to be the morning of questions. "Do you mind?" The wife was surprised. "Of course not. You can't imagine. When I saw that it was a baby, immediately thought that I found him, so he is mine," almost cried the man. "Beloved," she rushed to him. The children watched as Mom and Dad hugged. Afterward, Cindy told her husband what the doctor had told her. There was no hurry now, but Anthony was still worried. The next day, he went to work, and in the evening, the garbage truck came into the yard again. "Hi," waved at him Jonah. "Hi," nodded Anthony. "What did you find there that you so quickly ran into the house?" "Come on, I'll tell you about it later," the janitor promised. "Okay," shrugged John. He went to do his usual business. Family life continued. Now a few problems were added. Cindy called the hospital every day to see how her Stephen was doing. There were no changes. Yes, she had given him a name because she hadn't given up on the idea of taking him into her home. A few months later, the boy came to his senses. "Hello, Cindy." The doctor called her one day. "Could you come to the hospital?" Of course, she was ready to do that any minute. "Then I'll be expecting you soon," the man said. Cindy didn't hesitate. She was ready to go now, but she couldn't leave Selena alone at home. She had to wait for her husband. Time was moving so slowly, she was getting nervous. "Leslie, where are you going?" Anthony came home. "You know, the hospital called." She told him everything. "Do you need my help?" The man got worried right away. "No, you stay with the kids and I'll go that way." She took her purse and left the house. "All right, if anything, call me. I'll wait for news." He looked after her. The woman was very worried. The worst news would be that the child got worse, but she didn't even want to think about it. Why hadn't the doctor told her anything? The car was going so slowly that Cindy had several options running through her head. She quickly made her way to the hospital, and within minutes she was in the doctor's office. "Again, hello. Can you tell me what's wrong with Stephen?" She looked at the man behind the desk. "Okay, Cindy, right." He looked at her. Yes. You didn't call this morning. Can you tell me what's wrong with him?" She was shaking all over. "I wonder if you've given him a name yet?" He grinned. "But what's the big deal? If we want to take him into our family, why not give him a name already? Some women, when they are pregnant, give a name to their baby," she wondered back. "Have a seat," he asked her. Cindy was very nervous. Her hands were shaking with excitement. She didn't know what was about to await her. "As I told you before, the child has so many diseases, but most importantly, there are suspicions of oncology." The doctor lowered his eyes. "What? He's so young." Tears welled up in Cindy's eyes. "That's why I called you here, of course. I don't know why you need such a burden, but if you're going to take the child to another clinic, I warn you, it will require a lot of money." It was obvious that the doctor empathized with the woman. "I'll do what I can," Cindy said. She knew they had nowhere to get the money. Basically, that's all I wanted to tell you. It's up to you now. If you decide to do this, get the boy to the clinic in the capital as soon as possible. He got up to walk her to the door. May I see him? She turned to the doctor. Sure, let's go. He took her hand and led her to one of the rooms. The woman looked at a small child who was lying under the dome in a crib. There were various tubes coming from it. Cindy thought to herself, how could it be? Such a baby, and already from birth, he had to go through such difficulties. She drove home, tears welling up in her eyes, with only one thought in her head: where to get money. She didn't call Anthony. She decided to tell him at home. Why are you so quick? What happened? Her husband opened the door. Anthony, let's go to the kitchen, she told him, put her bag down and went there. They sat at the table. Cindy told him everything. Jesus, he clutched his head. He had to think of something. Cindy called her friends and her mother. The most we can do to help you, the woman said, is to give you some of the money. Where'd you get all this money? The daughter wondered. We were saving for your dowry and for our grandchildren's future, but when you got married, there was still not much there, and then it was useless. But now you see, it came in handy. The mother promised that in the near future, she would withdraw and transfer the money to her daughter. It was very happy information. The woman immediately dialed the number of the clinic and told the doctor about it. So you can prepare the boy for the move, he said, but you may encounter many more difficulties. Everything was done very quickly. Anthony put out a call at his factory that his child needed help. People did not remain indifferent. They collected a certain amount of money. It was given to the parents. Now it was necessary to decide with whom the boy would go to the capital. Well, can I go? Anthony asked Cindy. What about work? She was worried about him. I'll take a vacation, he was adamant. They didn't know why their hearts and souls were so attached to this baby. And so, after some time, on a special transport, Anthony together with his named son were taken to the clinic. Doctors agreed to the operation, of course. The money was not enough. But while all the examinations, tests, and everything else was going on, there was still time to collect. Emma and Catherine, Cindy's friends in their town, as well as Anthony, organized a fundraiser. It was coming in well from there too. Everyone was willing to help this family. Time was passing. Anthony had already traveled back and forth twice because he couldn't live away from home. Maybe I'll go there for a while if it's hard for you, his wife told him. No, be better off with the kids, he hugged her. Stephen needed to grow up a little bit for this complicated operation. Maybe we could take him home for a while, Anthony asked the doctors. You understand, it's going to be hard on you. They knew that firsthand. We'll get through this, he promised the doctors, and miraculously, they let the boy go home. When Anthony walked into the apartment with the baby in his arms, Cindy was stunned in the hallway. What? The doctors refused treatment. She didn't understand. No, they've let us go home for a few months. They need Stephen to be 1.5 years old to do the surgery, said the father and husband of the family. Good, then now would be the time to do all the paperwork. No one had done it yet. Now Anthony came from work. He tried to spend more time with the children and Cindy in the afternoon, while the elders were in kindergarten, ran through the authorities, making the documents. She had to listen to a lot of things. Why do you want this baby? They asked her. Well, what do you care? I decided so. I want this child to be mine. She could not prove to people that she really needed it. A lot of people judged her for doing it all for the money. Understandably, she didn't have enough money for her own allowance, so she decided to adopt, they whispered in town. But the family did not pay attention to this, because now it was important to cure the child. The papers were drawn up, and now it had been a couple months since Anthony and Stephen had been back at the clinic. Now the money for the operation was enough. There was only one difficulty left, to find a donor, but it was not so easy to do. Tell me what you need. Maybe I can help, Anthony was saying. He sat in the doctor's office crying. You understand, you need a bone marrow transplant, and it's not so easy. It can be taken only from a sibling, in extreme cases, parents or someone else. The man went out into the corridor, real tears streaming down his face. He didn't think when the doctor talked about the difficulties that they would be like this. Anthony, how's it going in there? Cindy called him. You know. He told her everything. He could hear his wife crying into the phone too. If you try my stuff, my kids, Anthony suggested to the doctor. Are you kidding me? He smiled back. But it's worth a try, he urged him. Well, if you insist, we can check, but it will be a waste of money, the doctor told him. In the evening, the husband called his wife again and told her what he had told the doctor today. Anthony, you realize this is a stupid idea, she cried, but at the same time chuckled. But miracles happen. He's a little guy. God will help us, her husband told her. I don't know, the wife doubted it. Then the father came home. He took Stan with him, and together they drove back to the hospital. They took biomaterial from both, and the results were due in a while. Until then, they had to wait again. Anthony talked to Cindy every night. You know, I realize now what a state you were in back then, when you wanted a child and you hadn't had one for so many years, he told her. And how did you realize it? She wondered. Now, when the life of the child depends on factors beyond my control, and it is not known what to expect, there is only time, and it stretches so slowly, he told her. The doctor called in the evening. Anthony saw his number on the screen, but was afraid to pick up the phone. He was afraid to hear the word no, even though it was 99% of 100. Hello, he picked up the phone. You need to come to the clinic right away, the man told him. Anthony drove there hoping for nothing. He realized that now he was about to be announced the verdict. He approached the office. The doctor was already waiting for him there. Anthony just looked at him, and he opened the door and invited him into the office. So Anthony, I don't know how this is possible, but your son's material is perfect, he told the man. What? Anthony broke out in a sweat. There can be no mistake, we checked, the medic told him. God, thank you. Now the man was ready to go to any church, to put candles to anyone, just to help his son. Stan was taken away. Now it was necessary to perform the operation. The boy was not against it. Mom and Dad told him that it was his another little brother, so he was willing to help him. Cindy gathered Richard and Selena, and together they all drove to her husband's house to support him as well as her son. Everything was taking too long, time was dragging, but they had to wait. Cindy went to church, prayed, asked for help. I guess we're not such bad people after all, she told her husband. I love you, he hugged her. Together they had endured so many trials that now they could handle any trouble. For 3 long months, they stayed by Stephen's side. The doctors said that he was on the mend, that everything was healing well. But they needed more time because they were afraid of rejection. But strangely enough, everything ended well, and now the happy family was coming home. I couldn't believe it. Sitting in Cindy's kitchen, she wanted to both cry and laugh at the same time. Everything seemed to be bad, but at the same time, also really good. I wanted children, of course, but to do it this way, I never thought. She took Anthony's hand. Cindy, everything will be fine. As her husband always told her, if God sent us this child, it was meant to be. The family was very happy. Stephen was growing up. He was still very weak. Everyone else was always there to pick up the slack. Listen, Cindy, I'd like to talk to you. One night, after the kids were asleep, a husband and wife were sitting in the kitchen. What happened? She looked at him with frightened eyes. No, everything is fine. The man realized that when their family starts talking like this, it means something bad has happened. Then talk. She looked at him and listened attentively. I want to do a DNA test. He lowered his eyes, took the pen that was on the table, and waited to see what his wife would say in response. Don't you get it? She sat puzzled, not understanding why Anthony would do this. You understand, when I offered the doctor my candidacy as a donor, he twisted his finger at the temple and even laughed at me, and you see how it turned out, the man explained. Oh, we spent so much money, and now you want to invest more? She shook her head. I'm not asking you, I'm just putting you on notice, he said to Cindy. Okay, do as you see fit. She got up from the table and went to her room. She thought it all seemed incredibly absurd. Darling, where are you going? He followed his wife. Are you hiding something from me? She looked at him, tears in her eyes. What do you mean? He didn't understand. Nothing. Let's do everything first, and then we'll talk. She lay down on the bed and turned her back to the wall. The next day, Anthony went to a specialized clinic, wrote a statement. Later, he and Stephen took tests. And now there was waiting again. How the waiting was killing him lately. John, hey, he was back at work after a few months off. Yeah, he was standing by the car waiting for the tank to turn over. Why are you so glum? Anthony asked him. No, so what? You found a baby in my car then? He turned to him. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to tell you. I didn't think it would be so important to the garbage truck driver. I was dragged with questions to all the authorities. Where from? Where to? Still as sadly said the man. Well, it's all over now. Imagine what would have happened if I hadn't noticed him then. It seemed like a long time after that moment. Okay, but you could have warned me. John did everything and was now walking towards the cabin. You see, then time was running out in minutes. We had to save the kid. Remembered how and what Anthony was like then. Okay, see you later. Climbed into the cab driver. Bye, nodded the janitor. Anthony got a call while he was at work, saying the results were in. He worked it off and went to pick up the papers. Walked into the clinic. When they handed him an envelope, his hands were shaking. You worry so much, the young girl who was chatting with him then told him. Thank you. He put everything in his bag and hurried home. He didn't want to see anything on his own, only with his family. He arrived home. Cindy had made dinner, now waiting for everyone at the table. Stephen was in her arms. I have the envelope ready, Anthony said quietly and laid it out on the table. Why didn't you look at it? His wife raised an eyebrow. I didn't want to be alone, waiting for us all to be together. He took the papers in his hands. Well, don't drag it out. Open it. Cindy's excitement was transmitted to her husband. Anthony opened the sealed package, took out a paper, started running his eyes over the lines. Speak. She wanted to snatch the document from his hands and see the wife herself. I can't believe it. It just can't be. He put the sheep on the table and sat down and covered his face with his hands. Cindy picked it up. At the end it said there was a 94% chance of parentage. What's that? She shook the paper in front of him. I don't know, he shrugged. No, you explain to me. Where did this child come from? She sat back in her chair. She didn't want anything more. The woman was so upset. Leslie, I'm sorry, but I don't know what's going on. He knelt in front of her. I'm sorry for what? She looked at her husband as if he were the last traitor on earth. I can't say. He sat back in his chair. The next moment, the children had already eaten and were shooed out of the kitchen and into their room. And the husband and wife began a serious conversation. I'm guessing, standing over him was Cindy. She was determined. About what? He looked up at her. Maria, she said one word. Maria who? What are you talking about? You could see the man was worried. That janitor, who works in the neighboring house, I saw how you sat with her many times together, and she came to your room more than once. While I was here with the kids, you were having fun with her. She was practically screaming. I love and have always loved only you. Anthony wanted to hug her. Don't touch me, it works out. You were together. Then she found out she was expecting a baby, and I know you're good at that. It was too late for an abortion, so she had the baby and threw it away. She thought no one would grab it, was that it? Cindy was very angry. It was the first time Anthony had ever seen her like that. Yeah, it turns out you're a fantasist too, her husband laughed. Let's go, she called out to him. They went down to the courtyard together, walked across the yard, went into the condo where the local janitor lived. She was sitting in her room, and on the table in front of her was a bottle and a piece of bread. What are you celebrating or commemorating? Cindy asked without greeting and with insolence. Anthony, is she crazy? Maria tapped herself on the forehead. I'm gonna show you who's what, the woman approached her. Cindy, don't. Everything you said, it's not true. Her husband grabbed her, so she wouldn't do anything stupid. You're still sticking up for her. The wife was breathing hard. Explain to me what happened. The janitor's lady didn't understand anything. Why did you throw the baby away? Cindy asked her directly. What baby? Are you crazy? She looked at the man. Stephen, our Stephen, who I just found, he explained. Are you family crazy? She poured herself a drink. It was obvious that Maria was not aware of what was going on at all. She lives in her own little world, which apparently suits her. Did you realize now that it's all just your fantasy? Anthony hugged her. Forgive me, she raised her eyes to him, and Maria sat there, looking at them, thinking different things. The couple returned home. The man realized that due to recent events, the wife could not stand it and just freaked out. He went to the kitchen, diluted the sedative in a glass, brought it to Cindy. Thank you, she thanked him and lay down. Rest, he closed the door, looked in on the kids, they were playing, went into the kitchen. There he sat down at the table and began to think, really, how could this have happened? Nothing came to mind. Anthony realized that it was certainly not his child, but in the evening, he went out into the yard again to work. John was already talking to him normally. Today they were discussing the incident with Maria, which she had already told everyone about. Anthony didn't feel like talking about it. He came home. Cindy was up. She was doing something in the kitchen. Sweetheart, I'm having another serious talk with you. He sat down at the table. I can't take it, she grimaced, turned to him. Listen, I know whose baby it is. There is no other way. He stood up and walked over to her. Whose is it? She turned away from him. Aubry, he said confidently. What? It can't be. The woman took his hands off her. Think about it. I have no brothers. My parents are also absent. How could the test show such a high kinship result? The other children are still young. This is definitely her son, he insisted. I can't believe it. I can't believe we raised our daughter so well that she would throw the baby in the trash, Cindy sobbed. It turns out they could have. Where is she? When was the last time we talked about her? Asked Anthony and spread his hands. But I have small children, and now Stephen too. Cindy realized herself justifying herself. We need to find her right away. Anthony began to gather himself. You make it sound like she's just standing around the corner and you're going to go out and bring her home. So, remember when she told us she met that guy? What was his name? The husband snapped his fingers. I think it was Sam, Cindy recalled. Right, I was thinking cockroaches. He started looking in his notebook, then on his phone. What are you trying to find? The wife was curious. Numbers of her girlfriends or friends. He kept doing it. Now, a woman got up, went somewhere, then came with a notebook. Here, she used to write everything down here. Great. The father sat down and started calling everyone in this little book. Ariana, hello. This is Aubry's dad. Do you happen to know where she is? Or where her boyfriend, this Sam, lives? This question he asked a few dozen times, but no one could answer the question. It had been years since anyone had seen the girl, and no one knew anything about her boyfriend. She hadn't talked to any of her friends in a long time. Came Anthony into the kitchen and looked at Cindy. It's all my fault. She began to cry again. No, you're not the only one. We are. He took her in an armful. The man then decided that he would do anything to find his daughter. At first, he wanted to go to the police, but then he thought about it and decided that he would try it himself first, and then he would involve the authorities. One of Aubry's girlfriends said that they were always meeting at one of the clubs, and that's where the man went. He walked inside the building. There were a lot of young people. They all seemed to be underage. The man wrinkled his nose. He remembered that he used to behave like that himself. "Hello," Anthony approached the bar. He shouted because the music was so loud. "Hello," a young guy answered him. "How long have you been working here?" The man asked. "Not for a year." He couldn't seem to get a straight answer. "Say, have you ever heard or seen a couple, Sam and Aubry? The father hoped that the daughter had an unusual name. It would be easier to find." He showed a picture. "Yeah, I know," nodded the guy behind the counter. Anthony's chest quivered with joy. "Can you tell me where he lives, head friend?" he asked. "Nah, I don't know. Ask those guys over there." He pointed his finger at a bunch of young men. "Thank you." The man put the bill on the counter. "You're welcome." The bartender took it. "Hey guys," Anthony came up to them. "Hey, uncle." "Back off." One of them turned to him. "No, I was just asking." The man seemed to find it easy to talk to them, just like when he was younger. "Shoot." The other one joined the conversation. "You know Sam and Aubry?" He pulled out the picture again. "She's my daughter." "Oh, these," they laughed. "Who doesn't know them?" "Can you tell me where they live?" the parent asked hopefully. "Aha." They named the neighborhood and the house, but further, alas, they did not know. Always met in the yard. "Thanks for that. Let's go. I'll buy you a drink." He called them to the bar. After that, the man rushed to where the young men told him to go. Although he had lived in this city since he was born, he had never been in these neighborhoods. There were some wooden houses here, some with one floor, some with two. Anthony realized that this was not a very prosperous place. He found the house he'd been told about, and there were 2 floors and as many entrances. The man went into the first apartment. "Who are you?" A woman opened the door. She was clearly not herself. "Do you know in which apartment Sam lives?" Anthony asked without any unnecessary words, thinking to himself that he should have brought something with him. Then he would have been given all the information. "What do you want?" As if he knew he would. "Here." He held out a small bill. "In the 7th, through the aunt," and closed the doors, and the man did not need anything else. He went up to the 2nd floor, where the 7th apartment was, and knocked. He was opened by a young guy. He wasn't in very good condition either. "Sam?" Anthony asked him. Well, the man stood there and didn't seem to understand what was going on here at all. "I'm Aubry's father. Can you tell me where she is?" He thought he was going to tell him to come in. "She's here." "How would I know?" He shrugged and yawned. "How?" "Because she was leaving for you." The man was disappointed. What it was, the guy lost interest in the conversation and wanted to close the doors already, but Anthony did not let him do it. "Tell me then where she might be," he asked politely. "I don't know, go to Mickey's." He nodded at the apartment across the hall. "Okay, thanks," stepped away from the door and knocked on the other doors. There was loud music coming from over there, something Anthony had heard before he came over here. "What do you want?" The door opened. Anthony thought it was the only kind of people who lived in this house. "Aubry's here." He didn't have to be polite. "And who are you?" If there was such an answer, it means that he knew the girl. The father pushed the guy away and went inside. This place was filthy. Things were scattered everywhere. The odor was such that no normal person could live here. The music was blaring, and the guy who'd opened the door was saying something, but Anthony couldn't hear him. He walked past all the junk, entered the room. There was a girl lying on the bed. "Aubry?" Father could not believe his eyes. It was a skinny, unlike anything else girl. "Huh?" She looked at him with cloudy eyes. "What are you doing?" He shook her. "Get off." She wanted to pull his hands away. "No, you won't get away from me so easily now." Dad tried to lift her up. It was easy to do. The daughter weighed nothing at all. "Where'd you take her?" yelled the guy who met him. "It's none of your business, and you'd better shut up or you'll be in trouble." He pushed him away with his shoulder and left the apartment with his daughter in his arms. Let go," the girl tried to squirm in his arms. Yes, now, just get you where you need to go." Her father spoke to her. He was waiting for a cab to come for them. The day Aubry announced to her parents that she was leaving home, she really thought she was going to do well, as ambitious teenagers always do. She was finishing 9th grade when she met Sam. It was at a disco. He was the first guy all the girls were after. Aubry knew she was cute, so she approached him first. "Hi, I'm Aubry," she told him then. "So?" He grinned. "Nothing. Want to dance?" She didn't take her eyes off him. Maybe that cheekiness had pleased the guy then, because not only did he go dancing with her, but he asked her out after it was over. That was when she first learned what a kiss was and more. "Will you be my girlfriend?" The young man did not ask, but told her. "How quick you are," she laughed. "No one will dare to touch you." He pulled her to him and dug his lips into hers again. From that moment on, they were always and everywhere together. Aubry was flattered to have the coolest guy with her. The girls followed him around, and the guys listened to him. And she was the only one he was gentle and caring with. "What do you want to do after school?" he asked her then. She didn't think about it yet. Though she was daring, she behaved roughly around him. "Do you live with your parents?" The guide asked her questions. "Who else?" She looked at him. Okay. He didn't ask her anything else. They spent the whole summer outside, wherever Sam took her, and Aubry felt like she'd been to every barracks in the city. That's when she had her first taste of the poison her lover had slipped her. After that, she was totally dependent on him. "Move in with me," he said to the girl. "Okay, just need to tell her parents." Then she came to her mom and dad. "Come on," waiting exactly 15 minutes. He stayed in the yard. And then they had a fun life. They had fun in the guy's apartment, was constantly a showman. Friends, girlfriends, music, and getting high. Aubry didn't realize she had to do anything or go anywhere. She was having a good time. "Hey," Sam poked her in the night. What? She couldn't lift her head. It was bad. And in the morning it turned out that it wasn't Sam at all. But the girl didn't notice or realize it. But they had the money they needed. And then the girl was sick all the time. "You don't eat anything and you're getting fatter every day," Sam told her. "How should I know?" She answered him just as boldly. "You'll see. I'll find a normal one, and you'll go back to your parents." They were lying on the bed and looking at the ceiling. She felt nauseous and dizzy, but Aubry did nothing. One day, on the street, the girl fainted. A neighbor found her, called an ambulance. "Wow, this is a serious case." The doctors came to take the girl away. They brought Aubry to the hospital. She was unconscious, but when she came to, she just started howling. "Why are you yelling?" A young doctor came into her room. "Let me go." She realized that her hands were tied to the bed. "Calm down first." The medics realized where she was tearing up. "I'm fine," she spoke loudly and tried to break the ropes. "Yeah, except for the fact that you're pregnant, practically in the last few months." He gave her the information. "What are you saying?" She calmed down a bit, but not even a minute later she was hysterical again. "That's what I'm saying. Lie still. She's being checked every hour. I don't know if it was the stress or what, but she went into labor the next day." "Get him out of me," Aubry yelled at the whole hospital. "Shut up, or now everyone will go into labor," shouted at her doctor, but the girl could not be calmed down. The child was born. He looked healthy. All the functions of the body worked. The girl was lying in the ward, but all the time she wanted to leave it. She looked at the baby, who did not evoke any feelings in her. Then Aubry began to think about Sam and what he would say when she came home without the baby. Where was she then? And here was at least proof. "How are you feeling?" The doctor came into the room on the 5th day. "Good. She pretended to be a sheep. Good. Are you sure I can discharge you? He asked her. Of course, she nodded and smiled through her strength. Then the discharge will be ready by lunch. He looked at the others and left the room. What are you looking at? Aubry snapped at her roommate, who was always making comments to her. Crazy, she said, and turned her back to her baby. Aubry got her hands on everything, took the baby, and went to her beloved Sam. It took a long time to get there. No one wanted to drive for free. But after a while, she was still in a familiar yard. The girl was anticipating how she would meet the young father and how he would meet her. And then he'd see the baby and he'd be happy. Here I am. She entered the apartment, thinking that she was lost here, looking and waiting. What are you doing here? Sam came out into the hallway. Not happy. She looked at him. Come on, go where you were. He started pushing her out of the apartment. Give at least a little. She nodded at his hand, which had what she had dreamed of all the days she had been in the hospital. If I give it to you, will you leave? He grimaced. Yes, she nodded. When Sam did, Aubry felt so good that she couldn't stay on her feet and slid down the wall. Well, who's been keeping you so long? Came a girl in the hallway. Aubry realized through the fog in her head that her lover was with someone else. I can't kick her out. He nodded at the girl, who was carrying a baby in her arms in the hallway. Hey, get out of here. The girl almost kicked her. At that moment, Aubry was able to stand up. Sam, what about our baby? She showed him the baby. Are you sure it's ours? He laughed. How can you say that? At this moment, the guy took her by the hand and began to push her out of the apartment. Where do I go? At least take this bastard, shouted at different voices Aubry. Go on. The young man pushed her out and closed the door. Is there a problem? Mickey looked out of the apartment across the hall. Fuck off, the girl told him. She was so angry. She left the house and walked down the road, not knowing where she was going. Somewhere between the houses, she saw a big car picking up trash. She walked over. There was no one around. Aubry stood on her toes and threw her bundle in there. She didn't need it. Right now, she needed to think about where to get a dose and spend the night. Mickey, she remembered. The girl went back inside. The guy took her in. She asked, he bought. That's how they started living together. Cindy, I'm in the hospital. Come over right away. Anthony called his wife. He was very worried about his daughter. He knew it was their fault too, that they didn't stop her. Where is she? The wife ran into the hallway. She's being irrigated. He nodded at the treatment room. My God, what have we done to you? She cried. You stay here and I'll go home so the kids aren't alone. Anthony hugged his wife. Okay, the woman sat in the hallway. She remembered when Aubry was born, how happy she and Anthony had been about it. And then they were practicing when something went wrong, when she lost touch with her daughter. At this point, Anthony returned home. Now he had to wait until evening. He wanted to talk to John. What was his car doing in that neighborhood? After all, he doesn't service it. He fed the kids, said he was going to the yard to work, got dressed and left the apartment. Oh, John, you're just what I need. He approached an old acquaintance. Hi, they shook hands. Say, remember the day I found that package in your garbage truck? He asked him. Well, try to forget it. The man made a sour face. Tell me, why were you driving that car that day in a neighborhood you don't serve? He gave him the approximate address. Where from? The driver looked around. From the Camel, he said. Anthony insisted. I had to and drove, he said quietly. I say so, after all, was. Anthony realized that it was all true. Why do you speak in riddles? Tell it as it is, John asked him. If I do, you'll judge me, sighed the janitor. I've already started, so why don't you say anything else? John turned away. He told him everything he'd only recently learned. So it turns out that Stephen is your grandson, made Big Eyes comrade. It turns out so, Anthony confirmed. Wow. This is something I've only seen in the movies. The garbage truck driver couldn't hold back his emotions. Quiet you, the man tried to calm him down. Imagine how many things had to coincide for Stephen not to die, Jonah said. What do you mean? The man didn't understand. If he hadn't screwed up then, he wouldn't have been fired. You wouldn't have been a janitor. My son asked me to go there that day to pick up some package. At first I didn't want to. But then I went. He shook his head. What's the matter? Anthony didn't understand why the man stopped. If I had known then what was in that bag, I would have ripped his head off. But it's too late now, he sighed. Okay, we'll talk about that later. The janitor wanted to continue. Why, don't you know him? He looked up at him. Oh yeah, Anthony smiled. He realized that everything was fine now, and God willing, Aubry would be cured now too. The whole family would be together. They talked for a while longer, and then went their separate ways. Cindy, hi, he called his wife. How are you doing? I'll be right home. Aubry's asleep. There's nothing for me to do, she replied. Good, he agreed with her. The wife arrived, cooked dinner, everyone ate, after which the woman began to wash the dishes. The husband stood next to her. He wiped the plates. And what do you think about all this? She asked him quietly, while looking absent-mindedly at the wall. I don't know. I have a kind of happiness inside, he told her. Wow, happiness. She realized that now another infirm child would come home. We are parents. This is our cross. He put the towel on the table and hugged his wife. They had to drive to Aubry's in the morning. They agreed that Cindy would drive in the afternoon and Anthony in the evening. Hi. She entered the room quietly and spoke in a whisper. Mom, where did you come from? The girl didn't understand. Her mind was a foggy mess. Hush, the woman put her finger to her lips. Why? Aubry asked in a whisper, feeling sick to her stomach. Let's sit in silence. Cindy began to sort through the bags. She looked at her daughter and couldn't believe that she could throw away a baby with her own hands. But on the other hand, if she hadn't, he wouldn't have gotten a full checkup, wouldn't have known about the disease. Then it would show up later, and there's no telling what would have happened. Okay, Aubry lay on her back and stared up at the ceiling. My girl, we will definitely cure you. At that moment, a nurse came to the room. She gave the girl a shot, and she fell asleep immediately. Why does she sleep all the time? The mother asked. So it is easier for her to bear everything that happens not in her sleep, smiled the girl. I see. Cindy got up. She had to go home, because there were other children waiting for her, who needed her more. How is she doing? Is she on the mend? Her husband asked her when she entered the apartment. She would, the wife was sure. Tired? Anthony asked. A little. Cindy didn't hide it. Go lie down. I'll do it myself. He went into the kitchen. Thank you, she kissed him. Every day the parents shuttled between work, the hospital and home. The girl was slowly, but she was on the mend. There were some breakdowns, even one escape, but she was quickly returned. After that, Aubry became peaceful. Don't you want to live like other people, without all this poison? Her father asked her. I don't want to talk about it. She folded her arms across her chest. Well, you have a son waiting for you at home, and even though, according to the documents, he is my child, but still, you gave birth to him. Her mother stroked her hand. Oh, enough of this snot. Aubry was turning into the person she was before she left home. The girl spent a long time in the hospital. After that, there was rehab, her father and mother supporting her in everything. And then they came home. Hello, the younger children saw her, some for the first time and some not. Hello, she was neutral. Meet your sister Aubry, Cindy said. Yeah, she nodded. And this is Stan. You know him, Richard too, Selena and Stephen. Emphasized the last name louder than the others. I see. Where can I lie down? It was obvious that Aubry didn't give a damn about all these kids. Go to your room, her mother showed her. The girl started calling her friends, asking for something, arranging a meeting. Where are you going? Anthony walked in on her. "Why, am I in jail now?" She looked at him. "No," but he shifted his gaze to Cindy. "What but?" The daughter raised her voice. "I don't know. We've fought so hard for you, for your life, and you start up again." The mom started crying. "What are you two doing here?" Aubry turned away from them. "I never thought you'd turn out like this." Cindy walked out of the room. "What's wrong with you?" Anthony followed her. He always knew his wife was calm, and he snapped. "She's an adult. Let her do what she wants. We've done everything we can for her." The tears wouldn't stop flowing from her eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry." Aubry came out to her. "What's the matter? You're a free bird. Fly wherever you want. Just know that we're no longer your helpers. Since you're with us like this, at least come over. Look at him, hug him," the woman said. "Why, he knows that you are his mother. What should I do now to get involved?" Did not understand the girl. "Mom, send me to my grandmother. I will live with them for a while, gain strength, calm down, and then decide what we will do next," the girl asked. "Okay, that's a wise decision." Cindy knew that their town was small. There was no way to get anything like here. She told Anthony. He bought the tickets, and the next day, the whole family saw their daughter and sister off at the train station. "Don't do anything stupid." Her mom hugged her. "Thank you," she told her parents. They arrived home, all happy. "How come he came to our yard?" Anthony asked about Stephen. "I don't know. The blot must have attracted him," his wife answered him. And then she came and sat on his lap and put her head on his shoulder.